So I'm going to be talking today about the myths of renewable infrastructure. When I say renewable infrastructure, it's in terms of IT Renew and what we do at IT Renew. This is my very first OCP Global Summit. I have to tell you, I have my own villain origin story. So I've only been with IT Renew for about 2 months. And in between my stint at Sun and 2 months ago, I worked on the Vanity Hardware side. So I didn't even know there was such a phrase as Vanity Hardware because I worked at Vanity Hardware, so we didn't call it Vanity Hardware. So I think I have a perspective that's interesting in terms of OCP, and I'd just like to share that with you. This was really great education for me too. So I combined these, since we're open, these myths from a couple of blogs that I found, as well as added one at the end from me, just to provide a little bit of value. But myth one is that OCP is only for hyperscalers. Probably everybody in the room knows that's not true. Microsoft has a lot of OCP. You've got Goldman Sachs, you've got Rackspace, Uber, PayPal, and then all of the telecoms like AT&T and Verizon and Deutsche Telekom. So it really spans the gamut of companies. And you may be thinking, oh, these are just really large companies. But because they do OCP at scale, that's good for everybody that buys OCP hardware. The second myth is about warranties. So some of the things that came up before in my previous hardware life was, hey, there can't be really great warranties on these parts and pieces, but actually they do. They're actually very competitive to OEM equipment. So you typically get your 3-year warranties, but then everything's so open and there's so much of this stuff that you can typically work with all kinds of vendors to get additional warranties and things like that. The third myth is about data center efficiency. So this actually isn't a myth. It's pretty much what OCP is all about, is data center efficiency. But it's also about sharing knowledge and collaboration with people across the globe in a very, very open manner for the betterment of anyone who uses OCP hardware. And the next one is about hardware specs. So we have seen some splintering of design, but you basically have to take your OCP stuff through boards and committees, and everybody has to accept your OCP specifications if you do submit them. So it's actually very, very well designed. And the fifth thing is that it's vanity free. So the most shocking thing that you can see as someone who comes from the vanity side is a rack without servers with bezels or doors. And the reason is you think about security and stuff like that. But in essence, you can get this equipment with bezels and with doors if you so choose. And then the last thing is that it's only for open source. I mean, we've seen over and over that that's not true. It's not just for Linux. You can put anything on it. In fact, I think Microsoft Azure Stack HCI would be a really great thing to put on an OCP platform. So these are some of the myths that I wanted to share with you because they're kind of the myths that we're seeing with renewed hardware as well. But before I take you through that comparison, I want to kind of go through the last 10 years of OCP and then the last 10 years of Vanity Hardware and kind of compare those. So the last 10 years of OCP, you're probably very familiar with it. There were basically all of these different projects that came together. In 2011, that's when the foundation started. It's founded by Intel and Facebook and Rackspace and Fidelity. And then in 2012, what happened was really important because this really accelerated the transition to 10 gigabit Ethernet, which you're still seeing in data centers all over the place. And that was the OCP mezzanine card specs that were released. And then in 2013, you've got ONI, the Open Networking Install Environment. That really allowed end users and channel partners to provision networking operating systems in the same way that we provision servers. So it was very important to abstract away the network operating system from the server operating system. And then in 2014, EdgeCore was really the first company that open sourced their bare metal switch design for leaf and top of rack switches or deployments. And 2015, SAI, those specs were co-authored by Broadcom and by Dell and by Facebook and by Intel. You heard about those this morning in the keynotes, how SAI enabled new network operating systems and switchgear proliferation. And then in that same year, Microsoft got behind network software, and that was software for open networking in the cloud, or SONiC. And then Facebook shared the wedge design, and OCP launched its first formal software project. It was called the Open Network Linux Project, or ONL. And then in 2017, you see the Telco project that was focused on telecom companies. And then in 2018, a lot of new projects. Security, basically, the Open Systems Firmware project, the Edge project, and on and on. But the net of all this is that there are millions of man-hours basically dedicated to collaboratively solving problems in IT by very global and very diverse teams. And this benefits any company that uses open compute hardware, and that's how OCP works. Now, I spent 12 years in Vanity Hardware, and this was a little bit of how Vanity Hardware worked. And I don't want to be unfair because I love the company, I love the people, very smart people, but certainly it wasn't the same mindset. So for instance, if we came upon a power problem or a networking problem, if there wasn't budget to address that, we had to actually set it aside for the next generation of chip that came out, because we didn't have all of the resources. We had a limited number of resources and a limited budget, really, to deal with these things. And in fact, that kind of went awry in 2015 and 2016, what we called the Gen 9 of Intel architecture chips. So just for the blade form factor design, we had to go from a density of 16 blades per 10U to 12. And the reason we did that was because the chip design required a lot more power, especially at those higher core levels. So we decreased the density, even though most of the people who were using those chips were basically using the middle amount of cores, not the highest amount of cores. So at that point in time, I kind of realized, well, we're kind of overcoring our customers. Our customers typically aren't using the 28 cores or 24 or 32 cores, whatever the highest number of cores was. They were using 14 or 12 cores per CPU and things like that. So we've been kind of overcoring for years and creating this kind of monster in terms of data center infrastructure that requires just more and more and more and more power, and that's not optimized just for the workload that you're running. Now, we did some really cool things, but there's, again, it's a dichotomy. It's very, very different from how OCP kind of looks at the world. But I wanted to go back to these myths of OCP and kind of compare them to really what we're seeing at IT Renew. So I work at IT Renew, and I work for a business unit within IT Renew called Sesame. And we basically build solutions from hyperscale equipment. So to back up, we have relationships, sometimes exclusive relationships with hyperscalers, and what they pay us to do is to take their equipment and decommission it, and actually in a secure and a timely fashion. And then we take those parts in Sesame, we take the best of them, and we put together new solutions that are recertified and warranted, and this is based upon equipment that's 2 or 3 years old. So when I was on the Vanity Hardware side, one of the things my customers would tell me every year and a half, we'd ask them to buy new stuff, and they'd say, the stuff you sold me 15 years ago is still running in the corner. Why do I need this stuff? And I realized that, in terms of availability and resiliency, data center equipment is amazing. And so this equipment that the hyperscalers provide to us, it's already been proven in mission critical environments and DevOps environments and things like that. So this seems like a really brilliant solution to me, and that's why I'm at IT Renew right now. So we have recertified and warranted rack scale and edge solutions. But this brings us back to the myths, the same myths that OCP has seen and plagued it throughout its life. We're really seeing at IT Renew with Sesame, and the first one is it's only for hyperscalers. Obviously, that's not true. We busted that already, but our idea is to bring this hyperscale RAID performance and efficiency to anybody who wants it. So we can actually share this across many different customer sizes and types and industries and verticals and all across the globe. The second thing is limited warranty. That's not true at all. Our typical warranty is 3 years, but we can even give you a 6-year warranty. So I didn't see that on the Vanity side at all, so I was very impressed by that. The third thing is about data center efficiency. And when it comes to that being all that matters, it isn't. It's already built into what we sell. What matters to us is really what matters to our customers. And that varies from customer to customer. So that could be, sometimes it could be that tight budgets matter the most, or that accelerated demand on IT matters the most, or that supply chain constraints matter the most, or the cost of carbon matters the most. But all of these are things, these are examples of things that we can help our customers with. We actually can show our customers how to design these costs and CO2 and supply chain constraints out of their IT. The fourth myth is hardware specifications. It doesn't even apply to us. I don't know why I would talk about it except to say that one of the things that we can do, and that I've seen over and over, is we've done some very innovative use cases, whether it's with cooling or networking or whatever. We do have engineering resources. We have a brilliant engineering team, and they can bring those resources to bear if you have a very innovative idea that you want to try in your data center. And one of the examples of that is block heating. The fifth myth is that it's vanity free. Again, if you want a bezel or a door, we can provide them. We just want you to know that bezels and doors do hinder airflow a bit, so you don't get as much of that efficiency. And if your question is about the security of your racks, one argument is that if someone has access to your data center, they might have access to the keys to all of your racks. So there's that. But again, if you want a door, you can have a door. And the last thing is that it's only for open source. Again, almost anything can run on OCP, including renewed infrastructure OCP. So in the end, we think that hardware, if you compare it to software and all of the different software that you get, applications, platforms, operating systems, things like that, hardware is pretty simple. It's compute and storage and networking, and basically you can use this layer of IT, the hardware layer, to reduce your total cost of ownership, save millions if you're large enough in carbon credits, if you think about that, and all the while you can get the scale you want with your storage, the networking performance you want, and your data center doesn't need to be redesigned. So there are three things to think about when you're thinking about renewed infrastructure: sustainability and your cost and your resiliency. We've talked a little bit about sustainability. I'm going to talk about it a little more in a 4:30 talk we're giving on reducing the carbon in your data center. But basically, we can eliminate up to 75% of the net new carbon that's associated with new equipment. So if you think about, what it takes to create new equipment, including mining those rare metals and making the components and shipping those components to all kinds of companies all over the world, and then creating solutions from those components, that pre-use phase, basically. That's what we can get rid of when we provide you with the Sesame solution. And if you think about what happens whenever, well, I already said this is already proven hardware in both DevOps and mission critical environments. But if you think about what happens with brand new hardware, inevitably, there was always a bug in it. There's a bug either in the memory, or that's something to do with the chip, or something to do with the networking or the storage. And with this particular model, what happens is all of that, any faulty equipment there is in the system, that's already been dealt with at the hyperscaler. So you don't even have to worry about that with renewed equipment. So TCO is lower, ROI is faster. There's a closed loop supply chain. We own the supply chain, so we can get you equipment faster than anyone. And in terms of resiliency, one of the neat things that I was very impressed about coming from the Vanity Hardware side is that we have FRUs, or field replaceable units. So if you think about the time you spend down, inevitably everybody goes down, something happens, you spend most of your time troubleshooting. And so if you have a field replaceable unit, you don't have to troubleshoot. You replace the unit, spin everything back up, send the troublesome unit back to us, and we'll troubleshoot it for you. So that was very impressive to me. So again, one of the things we like to say is you don't have to compromise performance for value, basically. With IT Renew, what happens is we can actually give you more for your IT dollar. We can help you put really superior hyperscale technology to use. We can make it easy to grow fast and go fast. And these are completely engineered solutions from the ground up. So we put all the components in place, again, optimized for your workload. We test it at a rack scale, not piece by piece, at a rack scale. And then we roll it into a cart. We ship it to you, and you can take it out of the crate, and you can have it plugged in minutes or hours instead of hours and days. And that's how we build Sesame. These are all built from the same common platform. They're purpose-built for your specific workloads. If you have AI or ML or hyper-converged or converged or edge or Kubernetes, containers, virtual machines, it doesn't really matter. we have a Sesame solution for you. So at our booth, what you'll find is you'll find our Workload Explorer on iPads out there. And what you can do is you press the Get Started button, answer a few questions, just very simple questions about your workload. And what it will show you is the exact configuration that we recommend for your specific workload. And then we can get you a personalized data sheet with that as well. So be sure to look at our Workload Explorer when you head out to our booth. Here's a few places you can get more information on Sesame. I have no idea how much time I have left. It still says 25 minutes, so I try to go fast. But if anybody has any questions, again, I've only been with IT Renew for a couple of months, but I have some very brainy people here who can answer questions for you if I can't. So, or you can get me over here. Thank you.